This is the Door Knocker podcast, where we dive into the explosive growth of the sales industry. We take an in-depth look with the industry's top talent to uncover what has made them successful as salespeople, leaders, and entrepreneurs. We believe all of life's opportunities are just behind the next door. With that being said, opportunities knocking. I'm your host, Zac Ross. Really excited today. We had your brother on, Bobby, probably a month or so ago, and I've been trying to get you in here. Busy guy, but yeah, man, go tell us a little bit about yourself, Bobby.
Yeah, so Bobby Taylor, born and raised in Las Vegas. How I got into the door-to-door industry is I served a 2-year mission like my brother. I went to Oklahoma, and while I was there, those were the 2 years that my brother got into Vivint. So when I got home from my mission, I never planned on going door-to-door, working for him. But 4 months after I got home, my dad passed away. And so I dropped out of school, and it took a big impact on my life. And so my older brother, John, kind of was looking out for me, and he's like, hey, look, I've made good money doing Vivint. You should come out for the summer. So that was his third summer, and he was going to be an assistant manager or co-manager with the main manager. And so he took me up to Utah, and while I was up there, he took me to Jeff Mendez's house, Poppy, as he goes by, and got into his house, and he sat down and he says, hey, what's it going to take? How much money do you need to make this summer to make it worth it for you? And I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know how I'm going to do. And they're like, name a number that we could guarantee that you will not make less than if you do just come out and you finish the summer. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like 21 years old. In my mind, I'm like 10 grand. But I blurted out 30 grand. And Mendez says, done. And I was like, okay. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. So we leave the house, and I was like, man, they believe in me that I'm going to make 30 grand in 3 months. It showed a lot of what they saw in me. So we get out to my brother's Prius at the time, and on top of his Prius, he pulls out a piece of paper and writes out a contract that I'm guaranteed that I'll make 30 grand if I go and I finish the summer. So that's how I got in the industry. So I went out that summer, and I was recently engaged. I was like, man, I'm making 30 grand. I dropped like 8 grand on my fiance's ring, on a credit card. I'm like, man, I'm gonna make all this money, And so I get out my first week. How we used to go door to door was you have car groups, right? You roll 5 deep, and the car group driver just drops you off in your neighborhood, and then around 1 o'clock, and he doesn't pick you up until about 9 o'clock at night, at least. So it was pretty tough. I went out there, I bageled, I didn't sell anything my first couple days, and my brother comes out with me the following day, helps me get one deal, and then the first deal on my own, it was a failed credit. I convinced him to get a co-signer, and and so we get to Saturday of my first week, and on Saturdays you get dropped off at 9:30 in the morning, because everyone's home. And maybe you get a lunch if your car group leader's like not in a deal, but then you don't get picked up till 9 o'clock. So I get dropped off in my neighborhood that morning, and I felt like I already knocked the whole neighborhood, and I was supposed to be in this neighborhood for another 2 weeks, they said. And it got really depressing, and I sat on a curb at like 10 a.m. and I was like, I'm done. I was like crying. I was like, this sucks. This is hard. I can't do it. And so I would normally call my dad, right? But he's gone. So I called my mom. And my mom's someone who I could usually convince, and she'll tell me what I want to hear. She'll let me come home and all these things, So I called my mom. And yeah, funny. And so I called my mom, like, Mom, I'm coming home. I'll just go work for, so-and-so. I'll make, $12, and then I could go back to school. This just isn't for me. And I was like, can you just help me get home, pay for a flight? And my mom paused, and I was like, she says, Bobby, if you come home, you're a failure. And if you fail at this, you're always going to fail, and it's going to be easier to fail. And I was just like, oh, shit. So, so yeah, it hit me right in the face. And so I got off the phone with my mom. She just, tried to motivate me, but she's like, if you come home, you can't stay with me. You got to, take care of your phone bill, all these things. So it eliminated that. And I got off the phone with her. My brother picks me up to go to lunch, and I didn't tell my brother anything. And we had lunch, and he drops me back in my neighborhood. And that Saturday from 2 o'clock until 9 o'clock, I went and I sold 4 cells. And same day, 4 deals, my first Saturday in the industry. I quit at 10 a.m. I sold the most in the office. I was top 10 in the company for that day, and I was on cloud 9. And so it was super motivating. But what my mom told me, because in the back of my head, I had a plan B, I had a plan C. If this didn't work out, I didn't go all in, And so that lesson, pretty much the biggest lesson in my life right there. My mom definitely changed my life in that moment. So that's how I got in.
Yeah, that's actually pretty badass. Your brother had posted something the other day because you were at a pretty nice dinner like a month ago or whatever, about how you guys have an interesting story, the Taylor brothers. And definitely both of you being LDS and coming from the church and obviously that's a different, I was joking the other day about, maybe if I showed up to the door in a suit, people would be more liable to answer the door, right? You know what I mean? Like, but do you think, although, my girlfriend's dad got to do his mission in Japan, so anytime he hears somebody going to Oklahoma or something, he said that they missed out, right? You know what I mean? Right. So, how much of your, because again, and I know this is you go out on your mission. There's no paper. You get the paper, but there's no news. There's no phone. There's no nothing, right? Yeah. And you guys finish, right? I don't really know many people that come home from their mission, right?
There are.
Well, some. I don't know many, right? Yeah. I'm sure there are, but. Your brother was the same, right? You come home, you start knocking, and what's the difference? What's the difference between you being on your mission and knocking for 2 years, and then you come knock doors, and I'm the same way. We all get scared in the beginning. We all feel a certain type of way. What's the difference? What do you think? What do you think is the big difference there?
Well, for me, it was actually harder selling door-to-door alarms and making money, because on your mission, yeah, you get rejection, you get used to that, so that helps. But at the end of the day, you did your work, where when something is 100% commission-based, that gets tough, because it's not just, I knocked and I got rejected. It's, I have no money. So that was harder, actually, my first summer than going on a 2-year mission. To be honest. So
I feel that. Yeah. Where were you at that first summer? In Utah?
No, we went to El Paso.
You were in El Paso that first summer.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. So then that first summer you did, how many alarms do you think you sold that first summer?
Well, so I was at a little disadvantage because I didn't do any preseason accounts. So usually when you get into the industry, they will recruit you, and then they kind of get you trained up. You get a few deals before the summer starts. So you hit the ground kind of running. And they started in April because school in Utah, college, they get out in April. Well, UNLV gets out in May. So I showed up, everyone has all these deals and I'm behind, so I had to play catch up. So I only went out for 90 days. But I actually ended as the top rookie in the office that year. I sold over 100 accounts, like 105, I believe.
You sold 100 in summer?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Have you ever sold 300 or no?
No.
What's the most you ever sold in a year?
Well, I never did preseason.
Ever?
Yeah, ever, because I always did go back to school or traveled. And so I would have 0 accounts starting the summer every year, where people would have like 100 or 50. I wish I would have, but so the most I sold in 3 months, I think, was 175.
Dude, that's amazing. So how many years did you not? So you worked with your brother, and then as your brother grew, you obviously grew. So kind of tell me, like, How many years did you knock with your brother?
Yeah, so after that summer, my brother decided to go and lead his own team, not be an assistant manager or co-manager. He wanted his own team. So and I saw the money to be made, if you recruit and if you build your own team, right? And so after my first summer, I went home, reached out to a few of my buddies who I thought would do good at this job. One was selling cars. His name's Pat Mendez. He's probably one of the greatest in this industry. He's makes $1 million a year now, knocking doors for Vivint, and so I recruited him. Yeah, he was one of my best friends. Wow. No, alarms. Yeah. Wow. So he has like a 6,000 account office, and he's doing really well. So I got him to come out the following summer, as well as Jeremy Moriello, my cousin. So we were at a party, and I told Jeremy about my first summer, and he decided to come out the next summer with me and John. And so I ended up recruiting, I think, like 3 of the top 10 rookies that next year. And so things kind of going really quick and escalating with my brother's office. And then I think my problem is I felt like I needed to finish my degree. That was always in the back of my head. And also I always had an itch to go work at an investment bank because I loved stocks, I love finance, and so I always had that itch. So that hindered me a little bit in my career with Vivint. And so, like my brother said on his podcast, the winners of this industry are just the ones who stay. You don't have to be necessarily the great, but as long as you stay, eventually it will come, right? And so that was kind of my downfall. Is I ended up leaving after a couple years after I recruited a bunch of people. Things were going great. And so...
How many years was that? So how many years until you left?
It was 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4?
Yeah.
It's ironic, Bobby, because I've had in my life, I've had the same thing where like, it's like there's a couple of goals that I've always had in my mind. I'll be given a good opportunity, whether it's whatever it is, and I'll do that opportunity for the length of the term that I feel is necessary. And then I've always got this thing in the back of my mind, no matter how good the current opportunity might be, that like, I've always wanted to do this thing over here. Let me just do that. So longevity as well for me has been always a hurdle. I don't necessarily think it's bad or good. I think it's just definitely always been in the way. So a couple of years knocking with your brother. Did you guys do most summers in El Paso?
Yeah, I did every summer in El Paso.
And that how's that? El Paso's a different world now, I think, than it was 7 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's the land of milk and honey. The benefit of El Paso is it's one of the largest Army bases there, Fort Bliss. So, and it's right next to the border, right? One side of I-10 is El Paso, the other side's Juarez. And so being military, their families, right, they want security, right? So home security was big. And you could go back there every year because military, there's a lot of turnover, right? And so every year, there's a guaranteed, 2,000 accounts that you could go sell there. So El Paso is great.
Is it kind of like one of those things too, where it's a bit of a small town vibe, where like, once you know a couple people, they'll refer you, or is it kind of like you said, because it's such a high turnover, you're kind of knocking fresh doors every year?
Yeah, it's the same doors. Like I went back, I knocked probably the same neighborhood 3 years in a row, the same part of town, same neighborhoods, just different people, right? And they're just growing like crazy. So I think they have like 700,000 people in El Paso. It's like the 4th largest city in Texas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was great.
So that lineage, but the alarm. I come from roofing, right? So the alarm world was new to me when I started selling solar this year. So the alarm guys are different. You guys are everyone knows you guys is a different breed. Alarm guys are a completely different breed than like those of us that chase storms or whatever. Alarm guys are just different. What's that lineage like, right? like you come from a lineage of you come from a guy who started knocking in a van originally, right?
Right.
So from Todd down, what was that kind of like influence on your life, you think? Like what helped you, what did it help within your life in those early to mid 20 years when you started working for Vivint?
Well, it was huge that I was fortunate enough to start with Vivint, because Vivint, I believe, has the best sales force in the world, the best training, the best guys, the best culture, everything. Um, I mean, there's alarm guys in other companies, but they just don't compare to the Vivint guys because of the training and the culture and all that. So I was fortunate with that. And the training that I got with them, it's invaluable. Not just in selling skills, but also in life skills, So I'll go back to what happened with my mom on the phone on the curb, right? There's a story, that is told about Cortez back in, 1519, right? When Cortez was trying to take over the New World, right? The Aztecs, they, docked their ships, got off, and Cortez ordered his men to burn all the ships, right? Symbolizing that there's no option, there's no retreat. We're either going to die or we're going to conquer. And in 2 years they did, right? And so burning your ships, eliminating plan B, plan C, is huge. And that changed my life, right? If I would have never called my mom, and I always had these ideas of what I could do if this doesn't work out, right? I would have never been successful in this industry. So that's something that Vivint instills in you, is burn your ships, and you will succeed, right? So just trust in the process. So, yeah.
Yeah, although I love one of my favorite. I mean, burn the ships, baby. But one thing I've noticed about Vivint is not only is it as hardcore as it is, right? Like, I mean, realistically, you got to be hardcore. I don't care what anybody says, right? I mean, to be able to do that every day for summers and all year, you have to be hardcore. You have to find something deep within yourself to knock for 8 hours a day, right? I mean, Tony Robbins talks about it a lot, right? If you want to own a business, don't go to college, go knock doors and sell something for 2 years, right? Because you'll find everything out about yourself you need to know. On the other hand, I do believe that although, I've heard stories about your brother, I've heard stories about other people as well about being, like when you're training, and I remember Lee was telling me, John would train him and Lee would feel like he's wanting to quit or whatever, and he never had gone to talk to your brother, and he goes and he talks to your brother, and you gotta think Lee's what, like, looks like a middle linebacker. Your brother's just a normal guy, and he tells the signature phrase to Lee: don't be a bitch, right? Your numbers aren't there, you're not working the hours. On the other side of the cuff again is you get the tools from them, right? They don't let you fail. If they see that you're putting in the work and you're working the hours and you're actually trying to better yourself, I believe that they invest just as much into you, which I think also, like you said, with the culture, right? I think that culture is unprecedented, right? Because I've worked on a lot of sales teams where even like friendly fire is always fun, but like when you actually want your fellow man to do better versus like I'm in competition with my coworkers all the time in other companies, right? Because that's just like how it is. So a couple years with your brother, knocking El Paso. You finish your degree then, or you leave and then finish your degree?
Yeah, so I got to a point where it was too much on my mind, and I couldn't progress with Vivint unless I, burned my ships or I switched ship, right? So I told my brother, look, I want to go back to school. I want to go and do this. I know how much I'm leaving on the table, right? Equity, residual, just a lot of money. But I didn't care at the time. So I told my wife at the time, I want to just take off a year. I made a decent amount of money where I could take off a year, go to school, and I could finish my degree. I still had 72 credits, though, to finish. So I went 18 credits summer, 18 credits fall, 18 credits spring, 18 credits summer again. And I finished in 15 months.
You're nuts.
And with a 4.0 in finance, did 72 credits in 15 months. And so I finished. I kind of got lucky because it's very difficult to get those sexy finance jobs coming from UNLV. No one recruits out of UNLV from the finance world, right? It's Harvard, Stanford, all these schools. Well, Goldman Sachs had just recently built one of their operations in Salt Lake City. And so they started recruiting around surrounding states at colleges. So that was the first year Goldman Sachs came to campus, and I happened to be graduating, but they were only they were only recruiting for interns, and so I still went, and I was like, hey, look, I know I can't intern, I'm graduating, but I am really interested. I really want to work for Goldman. That's my dream job. And they're like, well, we're only hiring for interns, and why would we hire you? And I was like, oh. Well, I was like, well, let me tell you. I said, I'm here at UNLV. I have the same textbook as the guys at Stanford, at Harvard, and I guarantee you I know more about what's in that textbook than they do. And they spent $100,000 a year on that, and I paid nothing. And she looks at me and she's like, that's a great point. And so she's like, well, let's sit down. And she gave me an interview, and then she said, cool, we'll let you know. And then a week later, I got an email to go down to Salt Lake and have an interview. So did that, moved, worked for them for about a year. And I was at the time like 27, so I got an analyst job at 27, and I'm working alongside guys that are 21, and I'm not making that much money. And so I'm working 80 hours a week, and
80 hours.
Yeah, 80 hours a week. And what kind of got me, and I knew I could make it within Goldman, and I could get and move my way around and get to where I wanted to be, but it would take time. Well, when I'm used to making six figures, and now I'm making 40% of what I was making, and I'm working 80 hours, and the guy who's the managing director works right next to me in his office. He's working the same amount of hours, and he's been here for 20-25 years. So it started to play with my mind again, and my brother started playing with my mind. He would call me and be like, oh, how's it working there?
No.
Blah, blah, blah.
No.
Yeah, so once he saw there was a little bit doubt and interest that I might want to come back, he started getting a little aggressive, and he gave me a really nice, aggressive offer to come back. And so I went back to Vivint, and then went out for a few months, sold, recruited, and did all that again.
So you worked for Goldman you were in Salt Lake.
The couple stints in New York. Yeah.
A couple stints in New York over the year.
Yeah.
And so you worked on the analyst side. We talked about that the other night. So you worked on the analyst side. So what is that? What's the major difference? So
so everyone's when you start off at an investment bank or in the banking world, no matter what department you work in, trading, investment banking, it starts at analyst. Yeah. So that's just your title. You're an analyst. After analyst, it goes senior analyst, then associate. Senior associate, then VP. Then VP to managing director. So, so I came in as an analyst, but I'm 27. These guys are 21, right? It would have been nice if I got in when I was that young, because my career would have looked a lot brighter.
So you were just like, yeah, okay, because you were just sick of Goldman, or you just, like you said, you just couldn't see yourself being there another 10 years?
Yeah, both. And it was the quick cash that I could get with this move back to Vivint, which was attractive at the time because I'm living in a 2-bedroom piece of shit in Salt Lake City, and my paychecks are barely covering, and I can't trade my own money because I work at Goldman, which that was a big thing for me. So I got into trading my own money when I decided to go back to school. So what ended up happening, I took that year off, right? And I was like, if I'm going to learn how to trade and finance, I want to have skin in the game, and I want to actually learn how the market. So I took out a $20,000 student loan from UNLV.
Savage.
Half of that, $10,000, paid for my school and my books. The other $10,000, I was going to trade that year and see what happens. So I took a class. I got fortunate. This guy retired in Vegas and just wanted to give back, and he taught option strategy. So I took his class. There's only 5 of us because no one knew what was going on. No one knew what options were, but I did. I wanted to learn. So he kind of mentored me, and I ended up turning that $10,000 in that year, my first year, into $30,000. I paid back my student loan, $20,000, and I kept $10,000 when I graduated, and it was cool. Right. Yeah, and so I was like, man, I love this. This is what I want to do. But then I got to Goldman, and you can't put on any trades. You can't trade your own money. So now I'm stuck making $49,000 a year with a bonus. And
But you made
but
almost in a first summer knocking doors,
yeah,
right?
but the opportunity cost of not being able to trade or do anything else, that's invaluable. So, yeah, so it was the right move. I don't regret it.
Obviously not. So, side note, are you watching what's going on with like GameStop and everything right now?
Yeah. The short squeeze.
Isn't that crazy or what? I mean, I woke up this morning to like Elon Musk tweeting, and I mean, market manipulation. Do you think that's, I mean, this is just obviously a different conversation, but do you think it's changing? I mean, like, people are a little bit worried that like day traders could maybe essentially change the market a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, this COVID, I think there's a lot of money on the sidelines that people and especially with sports being gone, right? So all these sports bettors, they have that itch to get in and make a quick buck. And so they all started trading. And so you just had a lot of money from the sidelines come in with no knowledge, right? But what drives a stock price is what drives a stock price to go up. It means there's more aggressive buyers than there are sellers. That's what drives the price, right? What drives the price to go down, there's more aggressive sellers than buyers, right?
Simple.
So what ended up happening was all the valuation techniques that everyone was accustomed to of how you value a stock, all that just got thrown all out the window, right? Because these kids don't care about what the balance sheet looks like or how they're positioned. All they care about is, we love Elon Musk, we love, Tesla, they're the future, and so all this money is being dropped into them, driving the price up, right? So, but in terms of GameStop, yeah, same thing, right? You just have a bunch of people, they saw huge short positions on GameStop, on AMC, right? And they pushed those short sellers to in a bad position because they just went in and bought, and they started getting their margin calls, right? Because their short positions were just getting blown out, and so it just shot up, right? So that's a short squeeze, yeah.
So I mean, what do you think happens? I mean, like, I wish I bought GameStop. I mean, GameStop, like what?
Well, it's good right now, but but you could get in today, and then tomorrow it's going to be back down to $16, right? So, yeah. But I mean, I call Tesla a cult stock. Okay, cult stock, because it's just like I said, a bunch of kids or a bunch of retail investors that have no idea what trading or how the market even works or anything like that, valuation. They just are buy, And so people that do know what's going on, they're just getting pushed out of their positions.
So you leave Goldman. This is like what, 4 years ago. You leave Goldman. You go back with your brother. Are you like a manager at this time? Are you?
Yeah, so I kind of brought the band back together when I came back. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of people that left my brother's team or, that I had a good relationship with, that when I came back, in their mind, they're like, man, he left Goldman to come back to Vivint, like, And so I reached out to a couple of them, and I quickly got like 500 accounts together, in a few phone calls. And
so what does that mean? So you got 500 accounts, as in you sold them, or you got guys to come in that sold 500 accounts?
Yeah, so between me and a couple people I brought back, that was going to be 500 accounts that year.
So you guys can kind of guarantee when you're recruiting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy's been in the industry for 10 years, and he's always averaged 150 accounts, right? So if I recruit him back, that's 150 accounts. I know I'm going to do 150 at least. Right, there's 300, and then I had like 2 other 100 account guys.
And that's here or Paso?
Well, we went to El Paso for a few months, and so we were trying to get on more of a year-round program than the summer program. So we went out from like January to April.
In El Paso?
Yeah.
And then where'd you knock in the summer?
I actually didn't make it to that summer, so a lot of personal reasons, yeah. So,
yeah. So So, okay, at that time, is it Blackstone that bought Vivint?
Yeah, so Blackstone.
Was it the same?
Yeah, so Vivint, they're a private company at the time. And the only way, I guess, for owners to cash out if you own a private company is you have a private equity firm, Blackstone, come in and they buy private equity, right? I don't know what percentage they bought at Vivint, or you have to go public, right? So that's the only way to cash out as an owner of a private company, or you sell to another private company.
So did that happen around the time that you came back?
No, that happened before. Before I left the first time.
Okay,
Blackstone
so within that year, they had been bought out, changed hands, right? Or not changed hands, but they've been bought out.
Yeah, so they just own the majority of Vivint now, right? Todd Peterson was still at the helm, right? He was still at the top. Things didn't really change. They just kind of restructured the finances. They grew the solar division like tenfold, like very quickly. So, and they took Vivint Solar public.
Blackstone.
Yeah, Blackstone.
When did Vivint Solar happen?
Vivint Solar, I think like my second year of Vivint. That's when they started. Yeah, I think that's when they started getting into solar, because I remember a lot of managers that worked with my brother that I kind of met. They started leaving to do solar on the East Coast, and so I never got into solar. Really understood it at that time. Didn't really have interest, but now I see what brought me to do solar is I saw all these guys that were very average. I'm not talking about Lee but in the industry, I saw these very, very average sales reps, some that I trained and that are just killing it and making all this money doing solar. And so I'm like, what? I mean, 100% if some of these people are making this kind of money, like, I need to get into this because I know I could kill it.
And they're not, because they're not doing it.
No, because they're average.
Average alarm guy.
Like below average, yeah. And they're killing it. So, which is cool to see. But I just knew, man, there's something there that I'm not understanding, or I need to look into further. So, after COVID, I spoke, or during COVID, we're still in it. I was talking to my brother, and I was like, hey, I kind of want to come back to Vivint or do solar. And so he kind of, in my brother's fashion, brought out the whiteboard and, wrote down the pros and cons of each, and just showed me, kind of both what it would look like and all that. So, no, it was good. It's visually, it's good to see. And so, we kind of planned out like, hey, what the next year would look like with each, what's the next 5 years, and with my lifestyle that I need and I want, and being local here and not having to leave every summer.
Your daughter.
So, and I have to get my daughter 2 weeks out of the month from Arizona, and I need that time off. This was just a perfect opportunity for me. So, and when I got into it, it's such an easy sell for me because I have that finance background. And that's what I tell customers about it, and I'm able to break down financially why you should go solar.
The economics of it.
Yeah, the economics, and I pretty much, And so Vivint with alarms, it's a very emotional sell, right? So you knock on the door, you get in, you sell on emotion, and if you don't have a tech there by the time you leave the house, like, a lot of people will think about it and not go through with it. So that's why we do the same day installs with alarms, whereas solar, it's a financial sell. It's not an emotional sell. It's, here's the numbers. Do you want to save money or not do anything and lose money?
Yeah, it's funny too you say that, because even when you ask a homeowner, like, would you rather go solar because of the environment to save money, and even if they say both, because a lot of people do say both, when you show them, hey, look, you're paying NV Energy on average $300 a month right now. I'm going to save you $100,000 over the next 25 years. You said you're at least going to be here because your kids grow up. Your kids are infants, so you're at least going to be here 18 years. I'm going to put $70,000 into your pocket. All of a sudden, the environment takes a back seat, right? The environment then becomes like, yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm down for the environment. It's not like we don't want to help the environment, but at the end of the day, So yeah, I mean, like, so you had some personal stuff. You got out of there. Did you do anything between then and now?
Yeah, I did. I dabbled in medical sales.
That's chill. Door to door, or
no. So a guy I went to high school with, saw him at the gym one day, and he's pretty successful in the medical sales industry. And so I just kind of needed to do something to stay occupied and get busy and stay here in Vegas. So I did that for, 10 months, and then COVID happened, and I didn't really enjoy it. The lifestyle wasn't that fun. You're always on call.
I'm sure.
And you're dealing with doctors, right? Who think they're the greatest thing on earth,
No offense.
So, so yeah, once COVID happened, it kind of gave me an opportunity to get out on my own and then kind of reevaluate. And then I landed in solar. So, which I wish I would have made this move to solar a lot sooner.
It's interesting that you say that, right? Talking to Lee a lot about, especially your brother. Your brother had. I don't even think I know that when Todd wants to try out new stuff, he sends your brother, any kind of like market research or any new ideas. He uses your brother. Your brother's got a really good mind. But they never had even. I mean, your brother never thought about solar, from my understanding, right? I mean, he not until the recent, like the last year or something, right? And he's kind of having the same mentality about it as well, especially with Vivint. I mean, like, dude, the Vivint guys don't play. I mean, like, even at your brother's, I've been trying to get Jeremy in here for for weeks, and the guy can't get an hour,
right?
And it's like, even for us, like, I went knocking with Lee yesterday. We had a great time. But again, with the solar, it's a completely different sale. I don't think anybody could have said it better than the way you just explained it. It's like, we're gonna have a short conversation at the door. I'm gonna get some info from you, and then setter closer mentality where I'm just gonna walk in with a proposal. I only really need 15 or 20 minutes of your time if you haven't even looked at this yet.
Right.
So I mean, when did you started October? When did you start? September?
Yeah, I started October. Went out to El Paso. Because Jeremy was still running the summer out there. Jeremy was out there. Lee was going out there. And I'm used to selling in El Paso. So I just went out there and got the basics of, in-class training of solar, what it is. Because I had no idea, I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know anything.
Could have fooled me.
So mid of October. And then, so it's been a little over 3 months, I believe.
Yeah, what I love most about right now, man, especially like finding Lee and I got a couple buddies in the roofing industry that really helped me along the way as well. Different game, like I said, man. Just it's almost like it's more savage in alarms because it's way more cutthroat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this deal, like even following Casey on doing your on the internet doing the Sunday planning and all these guys, Mendez, and just following them and watching them as long as you and your brother and Lee, the team aspect of it and what everyone's trying to give back, because like some of these guys were, I mean, manager to Walmart or overnight millionaires, or Vivint gets sold and they've got all this money in their pocket, and they're literally like changing people's paradigms on a daily basis, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the last few months selling solar been like for you? Like, I know your daughter is probably the most important person in your life. You can see that when you're with her, and I know that like your family, you guys have a really tight-knit family, right? Mm-hmm. From what I can tell, mm-hmm. I'm sure there's probably some whatever, but what's this stint for you, right? You've had a lot of stints, right? You've done a lot of stuff. You've had a pretty, I'm sure you could probably sell anything that you want to sell, right? But what's this last little solar bit been like for you?
Honestly, it's been life-changing. So what's cool with the industry is you develop a skill, right? That if shit hits the fan, worst case scenario, you could be dropped off in any neighborhood in this country, and within a couple hours, you could sell an alarm and make $600-700. That's worst case scenario in your life. That's an incredible skill, right? that's worst case scenario, right? And so now you have solar, and I'll get to your question, but to go back a little bit, why you see these average alarm guys or, people they could succeed with solar is because, like you said, you knock on their door. You're not trying to get into the house. You're not trying to sell them anything that day. You're just simply a little conversation. Cool, you're interested, I'll be back, right? It's not an emotional sell. Whereas an alarm, you're knocking on a person's door. They had no idea you're coming by, okay? Within 30 minutes, you're leaving their house. They love you, and they just bought an alarm, and they're in a contract, and a tech is, drilling holes in their walls. That's a crazy skill. And to get to a successful alarm guy, there's different levels you have to get to, because you have to do everything. You have to knock the door. So you have to learn how to prospect. You have to learn how to qualify. You have to learn, how to present well and to close. And it takes a lot of training to get a person to do all of that, right? Whereas you could bring in someone to sell solar, and you don't have to teach them necessarily all those skills. It helps, but that's why you see these average guys who are killing it now in solar, because you're not trying to sell them anything that day. You're not trying to get in the house. You're not, and so, so my last 3 months now to hit on your question.
No, it's good.
Like I said, it is life-changing. I think I've within 3 months of doing solar, never selling it before, and I still don't know everything about solar. I've probably cleared over 70,000, 80,000 in commissions, right? That would have taken me grinding every day in the summer in El Paso, for 3-4 months, right? Which, for my lifestyle, I just can't do,
Absolutely.
And so having this opportunity, and luckily I have the skill sets, and my financial background helps big time with this. I'm just excited to just keep going. I've never seen an opportunity more clear to make $500,000 in a year your first year if you put in the work. I've never seen a clear path to that in my life. So I'm really excited. And we'll see how the rest of this year goes,
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you got to run to an appointment. So one thing that I like to discuss kind of with people, especially on this, because fortunately, we've been pretty fortunate with this, that a lot of people have been listening, and a lot of people that I know want to hear certain things and want to know about certain stuff. So I appreciate you giving us your time today. But what should a homeowner expect, right? When you're coming in the house at this random guy in my house, what should a homeowner expect from anybody, from you, from anybody, realistically, when someone's coming in there to sell them solar, right? What should be the expectation?
Well,
what would you recommend to your friend? I mean, I know we make a joke because you sold your sister and your brother couldn't even do it, right? Which is always good. But
I've always been a better salesman than my brother.
That's good.
He's a better manager.
We just got to keep that. Did you hear that, John? We just got to make sure John. No, but what should what should a homeowner expect when you're going in the house to? I mean, we're getting into business. We're getting into bed with each other, right, for an extended period of time. So what should they expect from you?
They have to trust you, right? Because I think all the time, if someone knocks on my door, I've never bought anything from a door-to-door person, right? And I'm always irritated, right? And a lot of guys get that when they knock on the door. And there's a lot of things that go into that. And it's who you are and how you appear, right? And so we've had countless people come out to sell alarms, and it's really difficult to sleep until 10, roll out of bed, put on your work shirt, and go knock doors. That's tough, right? Sales is the transfer of energy, right? And so I've always made it a routine. My parents takes me a long way with sales, because when I knock on a door, people want to, if you look the part and you have that good energy, they want to talk to you, right? And then they could also trust you. You want to be someone who people want to talk to you. And so we would have people in the summer, they grew their beard for 3 years, and we make them shave it, because they didn't sell for 2 weeks, and there's a reason. And then they shave it, they start working out every morning and get into a routine, and now something magical happens. They start selling, so that plays a big part, right? If you open the door and you see someone and you just don't look the part, and you don't have that good energy, and you look like a slob, like, no one wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right. No one wants to talk to you. Right. But if you, and you don't have to be, a 9 or a 10, right, to sell.
Right.
Right. But you have to feel good about yourself, for you to have that energy that other people could feel. You don't have to look like me, but you have to do things, because that goes a long way. So yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing. So that initial, that initial knock on the door and interaction, within, 10 seconds, if you're getting in the house or not. Right.
Absolutely.
But a lot just plays on what you're doing and how you're preparing. So
yeah, because I can putting all that together of like just trustworthiness, right? Like realistically, at the end of the day, like the person answering the door needs to know that you're a trustworthy person. I'm that kind of guy who needed a lot of training with that. That didn't come easy to me. I'm not like you or Lee, where like I can just be, because I'm a real aggressive guy. Everyone that knows me thinks I'm aggressive, and I always use that to my advantage through what I did throughout my life until I started selling stuff. And then, like you said, it's a transfer of energy. If I'm coming off all aggressive at your door and I don't even know it, right? Because you can't see what you can see until you can see it. And especially with this, I think that's why, again, kind of wrapping it all together, the process for all of us with the door knocking industry, whether we get outside of the house or we stay in the house or whatever, is really understanding who we are, right, as a person. Mm-hmm. And Lee and I talked about that recently. Like, that's why we all like to surround ourselves with guys that are, good to their family, they're good to their kids, they take care of their people, right? Right. And they transfer that energy not only to the door, because I think that, yeah, man, at the end of the day, I can go and be a really good guy to the customer to get the sale, but am I good when I go home? Am I good to my coworkers? Am I good to people if I had employees, etc.? Right. Right. And so, yeah, no, I think that's a really good point of like, the transfer of energy, especially to the homeowner. Right. Right. That's how you can keep retention. Right. And then, yeah.
No, I think the biggest thing for me going on that is Pat Mendez, probably one of the greatest to ever do this in this industry, super successful. You start paying attention to their routines, right? Every morning. What are they doing when they wake up? What time are they waking up? How are they, using their time before they go to the meeting, before they knock doors? That plays a huge part, right? And for my personal experience, I've fluctuated. I've been fat and slobby, and I've been really fit and eating clean, whatever. But your physical health is a direct correlation with your mental health, right? And so that's the biggest thing I could emphasize with this industry, because you're knocking doors. You have to be the biggest extrovert, right, when you're on the doors. And so get into a good routine, whatever it might be, in the morning, and be consistent with that, and you'll see results.
I love it. That's too good. I'm going to end there. I appreciate you coming on, bro, taking the time. I know you got to run to an appointment, but I'm sure I'll have you on again. Maybe we'll do a Taylor Brothers episode or something, but thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, one more thing.
Yeah.
Could we tell everyone about your $10,000 bet? I told my brother. So
we're going to make it public that I bet Bobby Taylor. Don't cut the tape yet, Malcolm. I made a bet with Bobby Taylor that the housing market, the
lending for real estate
will go to 0% or below this year.
Yes. So in Jan 1 of 2022, if you can't get a mortgage,
Jan 24 to be fair,
if you can't get a mortgage at 0% or negative rate, I win $10,000. I've never seen an easier way to make $10,000.
I hate to break it to you, buddy, but it's coming.
All right.
I mean, it hit zero in Europe, and we're going to free money now from Biden for buying a house. So we're getting close.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks, bro.
Thanks.